Well, welcome to Roland's Travels, and today we're going to take you on a journey round the plaques of Frome. So join me on this trail and let's enjoy finding out about the history of Frome and the various sites where we'll find these plaques. So we're heading to Spring Road. We're going to follow the river. I'll not take you every inch of the way on camera, but we're going to come to our first plaque in a little while and then we'll tell you more then. So now we're heading up Spring Road and still on our way to the first blue plaque. So now we've reached the end of Spring Road. We need to turn right here and the house we're after should be somewhere on our left, a little further down. I'm just going to stay on this side of the road for a moment though, and we'll show you when we get there. So this is our first house. You can barely see the plaque due to it being a little bit hidden by the trees there. This is the one. We'll tell you all about it now. So this plaque tells us that at this home, Christina Georgina Rossetti from 1830 to 1894. She was a poet and pre-Raphaelite model, ran a school in this building from April 1853 until March 1854 when the Rossetti family returned to London. A little bit more information about her, that she was a Victorian poet who wrote a wide variety of romantic, religious and children's poetry. Rossetti's earliest poems date back to 1842 with her first published works, Death's Chill Between and Heart's Chill Between, appearing in Athenaeum in 1848. She also modelled several portraits for her brother Dante Gabriel Rossetti, who was a painter, poet and founding member of the Pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood. And then between 1853 and 1854, this is where she ran a young ladies' school here in Frome, although the venture proved unprofitable and was abandoned. So for our second plaque, we're going to walk back towards Frome Town Centre, along down North Parade, and we'll show you the next one when we get there. Now if you start this tour from the North Parade car park, which is on our left coming up, is then for the first property, rather than go down to the cheese and grain and start along the river, although it's very pleasant to walk that way, you can literally turn right out of the car park and come to the property that we've just seen. So this is number 2 on the Blue Plaque Trail, so let's find out what this one's all about. So the plaque reads, Clara Grant, teacher, educationalist, founder of the Fern Street Settlement, inventor of the farthing bundle scheme, lived in this house 1875 to 1885. Born Chapmansblade, 21st of June 1867, died in Bow, East London, 10th of October 1949. Clara Grant grew up in Frome from the age of 8 and subsequently enrolled for teacher training in Salisbury. She taught in Somerset and Wiltshire before moving to Bow in London in the late 1890s. When in 1900 she became a head teacher, she began improving the lives of the children by revising classroom techniques, providing hot breakfasts and supplying clothes and shoes. Most famously, she created farthing bundles, which provided children with toys at minimal cost, which led her to be known as the Bundle Woman of Bow. The Fern Street Settlement that's mentioned on the plaque was a place for mothers to meet and discuss their problems. In 1949, she was awarded an Order of the British Empire for services to education. And of course, that came right at the end of her life. And so this is our next property, number 3, here on North Parade. So our third plaque tells us that this house, formerly the Champagnes Arms Inn and London Coach Office, was built in 1739 by William Bailey, joiner, under lease from Richard Champneys of Orchard Lee, 1739 to 1989. In its heyday, the Champneys Arms was an impressive structure. It comprised of 3 floors, each with 3 rooms, a brew house, tower, and even a tennis court. In 1771, the landlord, Benjamin Coulston, hosted a flower festival there, with the odd caveat that the winners had to contribute 5 shillings each towards next year's prize. That's good, so you win and have to pay. John Scott took over the inn later that year and quite quickly had trouble with customers. Sarah Salter was accused of stealing from Mrs. Tippet, with whom she had shared a room, as was common for inns at the time. The case was brought before magistrates, but was quickly dropped when Mrs. Tippet's husband warned them not to believe her, as she had falsely accused others before. The Champneys Arms was sold in 1790 to pay the debts of its owner, Sir Thomas Champneys of Orchard Lee. Well, that's some more interesting information just about one building here in Frome. We're going to carry on further down into the marketplace now to look at the 4th blue plaque. So we'll just take a look back at the Champneys Arms. So we're going to cross the River Frome, and this is where there are shops actually on the bridge. There's the river. I do have another video, a tour of Frome, so do look out for that one. But the next property we're coming to, just as we get towards the bottom of the marketplace here, is the Blue House, and we're going to tell you all about this one right now. Now, the plaque tells us an almshouse was founded on this site around 1465 by William Leversedge. It was replaced by the present building in 1728 at a cost of £1,401, 8 shillings and 9 pence. A free school was incorporated, which survived until 1921. The house derives its name from the blue coats worn by the scholars. Statues of an almswoman, Nancy Guy, and a schoolboy, Billy Ball, adorn the facade. Behind the building are the statues of 2 maids, which came from the Keyford Asylum, built in 1803 and demolished in 1956. Today the house contains flats for retired people and is managed by trustees. It is a Grade 1 listed building of national importance. The almshouse originally consisted of a hall, chapel and 12 chambers. By the early 18th century, however, the house was in decay. James Wickham, a local solicitor, came up with a plan to completely rebuild the house and incorporate a charity school for the local population. The new building was erected between 1720 and 1728, along with the reconstruction of 2 arches of the town bridge, a guardhouse, various walls and a clock. The sophisticated classical Georgian building intended for the school contrasts with the plain recessed wings reserved for almswomen. Despite facing decay in the end of the 19th century, the Blue House has continued to survive. So this is what we've come to see. This is our next one in the blue plaque scheme. Now, this monument, originally a fountain, was erected in 1871 by the Honourable and Reverend R.C. Boyle, rector of Marston Bigot, as a token of his affection for Frome. It was designed by his wife, the Honourable Mrs. E.V. Boyle, artist and author, well known to the Victorians as E.V.B. The cross of red Devon marble weighs a ton and took 6 months to carve. The sculptor was Joseph Chapman of Frome, and the site was given by Richard, the 9th Earl of Cork and Orrery, Lord of the Manor of Frome. This plaque, to replace the worn inscriptions, was given by G.H. Boyle, great-grandson of E.V.B., and the Frome Society for Local Study on the 1st of May 1977. God's providence is my inheritance. Richard Cavendish Boyle was born in 1812 to Isabella Henrietta Edmund, 8th Earl of Cork and Orrery. He was appointed rector of Marston Bigot in 1836 and quickly became popular with his parishioners and was known for being charitable. In 1845 he married Eleanor Vera Gordon, who became known as EVB. So we're now heading up Bath Street. We're going to cross the road just past the church. I'm going to take you to something quite unusual and quite unique to Frome. So stay with me and we'll show you as we get there. So we need to cross the road. We'll use the lights and then go down Palmer Street. So we're now in Palmer Street, heading for number 6 on our list. And it's actually the lamp that we can see coming up on the white building there on our left. It's called the Cocky Lamp, and we're going to tell you all about Cocky Lamps and the company in just a moment. Let's get a little closer to it. Edward Cocky and Sons, 1816 to 1960. Iron foundry and gas industry pioneers, Edward Cocky introduced gas lighting to Frome in 1831. His foundry was on this site by the 1840s, manufacturing gas components and cast iron street furniture, including columns for the new gas lamps. This frontage dates to around 1860, by which time the firm employed over 150 people. Now we're heading back towards the cross, and then we're going to turn right into Cheap Street. Nice little street here, very old. And quite unique with this, very unique, I don't know too many streets with a stream that run down. So coming out of Cheap Street, we've turned right and we're now heading up these steps by St John's Church. And we'll tell you more as we get to the top. What we're aiming to go and visit is Gentle Street ahead of us. Now the plaque tells us, paved in its entirety with stone sets, and once a major entry, goes back to the origins of Frome in the 7th century. Here St Aldhelm trod and the Saxons had a lookout. Medieval men called it Hunger Lane because of its steepness. Later the Gentle family gave their name to it, and the London coach left from the Waggon and Horses Yard. Hunger Lane is one of the earliest street names to be recorded in Frome, in about 1300. Argyle House, located here, is a classical house built in 1766 by Mary Jesser. Its name refers to the Duchess of Argyle, who occupied it from 1855. It was at the height of fashion when it was built, and included fine details such as a staircase in Chanoiserie style, which remains intact today. Another significant building on this street is Gentle Street House, now the Chantry and Hermitage. It was purchased by the Thynne family, they're famous for Longleat House, in 1548, and later became known as Gentle Street House,
when James Wickham III, solicitor and builder of the present Blue House, purchased it in the early 18th century. So a lot of history in this little street in Frome.
There's the former Wagon and Horses pub. And then we come to the end. So now, having done Gentle Street, we can move on to our next port of call, which is number 8 on the map. So now we're told to come back down Gentle Street, which we're doing, and we're told then to turn right along the pathway by the side of the church. So let's go and do that now, shall we? Frome is an amazing place with the buildings it has here. There are so many we could explore. I know I've already done one video on walking around Frome, but we didn't cover this section at all. So again, some truly amazing buildings. Need to walk down these steps and cross the road towards the car park, and then we go left, then cross the road down the hill to our next point, which will be number 8. So this is the silk mill.
But what we're interested in is the house on the right, which has just got this one long wall for the property without really any windows as such showing down below on this property. The silk mill is there on the left, but let's take a look at the sign on the property.
So as we come in, we've discovered the blue plaque, and we'll tell you all about Alice Seeley, or Lady Harris.
Well, the plaque tells us anti-slavery campaigner, photographer, missionary to Congo, artist, scourge of King Leopold II of the Belgians, lived at 3 Merchants Barton, 1882 to 1888. Born in Malmesbury, 24th of May 1870, died in Guildford, 24th of November 1970, so 100 years of age. So a little bit more information about Alice. She and her husband, John Hobbes Harris, were Baptist missionaries in the Congo Free State, which was the personal fiefdom of Leopold II, King of the Belgians. Now they found that the natives were beaten and tortured if they had not produced enough rubber in a day. The children had hands and feet amputated, and their wives were raped. Alice Harris took hundreds of pictures of these atrocities and publicised these upon their return to England in 1902. So quite horrific goings on there that this lady and her husband were very concerned about.
So now we're on our way to Portway to find the railway station.
The railway station gets its own plaque. It was designed by T.R. Hannaford, an assistant to Brunel, and opened on the 7th of October 1850. This timber construction is largely unaltered and a rare example of a Brunelian through train shed used for its original purpose, and it is listed grade 2.
So here's the wonderful Brunelian through shed. To the blue plaque.
So here's a plaque to an event that took place here in Frome railway station. Political theorist Leonard Woolf. He travelled from this station to London on the 11th of January 1912 to propose marriage to Adeline Virginia Stephen. The resulting union bore fruit in the League of Nations, the Hogarth Press, and the major works of Virginia Woolf, writer. We're now going to make our way from the railway station up to Butts Hill, where we'll find a plaque on the wall of the fire station, and we're going to see what this has to say.
So here's our next blue plaque on the wall of the fire station.
Now the fire station is relatively modern, but they have placed this plaque here for Sir Benjamin Baker, civil engineer, born in Butts Hill, 31st of March 1840. He died at Pangbourne, Berkshire, 19th of May 1907. Designer of the Forth Rail Bridge, opened on 4th of March 1890. Cool, quiet judgment and a restrained strength were his marked characteristics, 1840 to 1907. So that's what the plaque says. Sir Benjamin's other notable projects include the construction of the subterranean railway from Westminster to the City of London, also the docks at Avonmouth and Hull, and the transport of Cleopatra's Needle from Egypt and its re-erection in London. So quite a few things he is well known for.
So we now need to cross the road and head back downhill, which we will do right now, onto our next plaque, point of interest, which will be number 12. So across the road, and then we're going to turn left a little way to get to our next point of interest. And this is the property we're interested in, Rook Lane House. So there's our plaque.
The plaque tells us, in memory of Mrs. Elizabeth Rowe, poet, who died in this house, February the 20th, 1737. Erected by the Frome Society for Local Study on the occasion of the tricentenary of her birth, September 11th, 1974. Here's a little more information about Elizabeth, who was one of the most widely read authors of the 18th century. She was the daughter of a dissenting minister, and she began writing poetry at the age of 12. And by 17 she was contributing poems to John Dunton's periodical The Athenian Mercury, and the pseudonym Philomela. Now between 1693 and 1696 she was its principal contributor of poetry. Many of these poems were printed in Poems on several occasions. She married poet and biographer Thomas Rowe in 1710. When he died of tuberculosis in 1715, Elizabeth was inconsolable. She wrote her famous poem On the Death of Mr. Thomas Rowe and retired to Frome, where she stayed withdrawn from society. Her father died in 1719, and in 1728 she published Friendship in Death. Elizabeth continued writing until her death in 1737.
So now we're approaching Bradcock's, and I can see the blue plaque above Parsons over there. Bit of view we're going to get of it, we'll see.
Well, this plaque tells us Professor Charles William Oatley, OBE FRS, electrical engineer and father of the scanning electron microscope, was born in this house 14th of February 1907, died Cambridge 11th of March 1996. And he did receive a knighthood, so he is Professor Sir Charles. So well done, Sir Charles.
Quite a little walk to our next plaque. I'm making my way along. On the guide it does say if you want to miss this one out you can do so, of course, but just for you I'm going to do the whole lot. I'll let you know when we're there. And we've reached it at the start of Eggford Hill as described. We have now reached the property which is number 14 in our list today. And we'll just get a little bit closer to the blue plaque sign for you.
Now this tells us that from 1994 to 2002, this house was the home of Lois Maxwell, actress and author who played the role of Miss Moneypenny in the first 14 James Bond films. Born Kitchener, Ontario, Canada, 14th February 1927, died in Fremantle, Western Australia, 29th of September 2007. So there you go, all you James Bond fans, there's something special for you.
So now, probably half a mile to walk back, half a mile's walk in this lovely sunshine is not a problem, it's keeping me fit. So I'll take you to our 15th point of interest. Very soon I'll rejoin you. So now we're just going to go down Horton Street rather than back the way we came, following the instructions. So now on our way we're coming to Gould's Ground. So we now need to turn here at the Griffin pub to the right into what should be Milk Street to find plaque 15, which should be on the school. We'll take a look.
Now I didn't film the school because the children were out at playtime and therefore it wouldn't be prudent with a video camera to go doing that. But here is a picture of the actual plaque that you see to Fred Nee. Christian compositor, socialist campaigner for workers and housing, secretary of the London Trades Council and the London Labour Party. Born Blunt Street, Frome, 16th of June 1868. Educated at the British School, Milk Street. Died in Radlett, 8th of December 1914. So we're going to leave the school behind and this sign and make our way now to Catherine Hill. Now the sign reads, "This building, traditionally associated with the medieval chantry chapel of St. Catherine, founded before 1326 and dissolved in 1548, was the home of John Shepherd, a cardboard maker, when it was licensed for worship by local Baptists before the erection of their church in 1708. To mark the completion of the restoration of Shepherd's Barton in 1990, this plaque was erected by St. Catherine's Community and Frome Society for local study." Well, just a little bit more information for you. It's probable that Frome developed up the slopes of Catherine Hill, which is quite a steep hill when you walk it, as you see in our video. But that was likely done after the foundation of the chapel of St. Catherine. Though its origins are largely unknown, it may have been founded by the Branch family sometime before 1279. It first appears in 1300 when Hugh, chaplain of St. Catherine, witnessed a local charter. The exact site of the chapel is uncertain, although the 1774 map indicates a supposed old nunnery on Catherine Hill, where shops and the house on the left going up to Shepherd's Barton steps are now located. A possible 14th century moulded doorway and a church window were found on this site in 1929, helping to bolster this theory of St. Catherine's location. Now, the Shepherd's Barton gained its name from the cottages built there for weavers in the first half of the 18th century by the Shepherd clothier family.
So we're on the final two to 17 and 18. Get to the bottom of this road here. We get back to the marketplace.
So this is our 17th plaque, the Duke of Monmouth. This house, built around 1600, sheltered James Scott, Duke of Monmouth, from the 28th to the 30th of June 1685, when Frome people called him King as confidently as if he had the crown on his head. After years of neglect, Monmouth Chambers was restored by Mrs. D. Brown, M.A., MBE, of Bristol in 1992, assisted by Frome Historic Buildings Trust, Mendip District Council and English Heritage. So someone very famous was there just for a few days, but it warrants that plaque.
And this is plaque number 18, our 18th point today and final one. We'll just get a little closer.
Now this sign tells us Frome Art Metalworks was established in 1866 by John Webb Singer, 1819 to 1904, who became renowned worldwide for his ecclesiastical work and from 1888 for casting in bronze some of our most iconic public statues, including Boudicca by Westminster Bridge, Justice on the Old Bailey, and Oliver Cromwell outside the Houses of Parliament. After statutory work ceased in 1927, a metal foundry continued on this site until 1999. John Webb Singer was born at the Butts in Frome in 1819. His father died when John Webb was only 3 years old, leaving the family nearly destitute, and so he received his education at the Blue Coat Charity School in the town, which obviously we've already seen. He was later apprenticed for 5 years to a local watchmaker, Thomas Pitt, and ultimately took over that business in 1848. Now interestingly, J.W. Singer may have remained a watchmaker if it were not for the arrival in the year 1852 of St. John's new vicar, William James Early Bennet. Now Bennet was a follower of the Oxford movement and commissioned Singer to make ornate church decor. So successful was this venture, he left watchmaking and established the foundry he gave his name to, and which would ultimately become known throughout the world. Now I hope you found this interesting, a little look at the plaques around Frome, and Frome certainly does have a lot of history that we can explore in the future as well as now. So I want to thank you for joining me. Please do make sure you become a subscriber. Click the subscribe button, and on YouTube make sure you also click the notification bell, and then you'll know every time a new video is uploaded. So thank you for your time. I certainly appreciate you being here, and do take care.